Hi, everybody. This is Ernesto, licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm here to interview my friend here, Beth Kelley. Now, before I go into her introducing herself to you, Beth Kelley, I'm pretty impressed with the work that she does. She is an entrepreneur, psychotherapist. She is a coach or consultant and an author. Can you hold up your book, Beth?
This is
Woo!
our book.
Wow. That's amazing. So before we go into that, I also want to ask about that book throughout this time together and also some of the things that you're doing for that community. So Beth, take it away. Go ahead and introduce yourself to us.
Thank you, Ernesto. First of all, I'm so excited to be here with you. I love all the work you're doing. You've been such a great support to me and all of the therapists and coaches and clinicians out there. I'm a psychotherapist, but I don't work in private practice anymore. I work now as a facilitator and a coach in a couple of different lanes. So the first is around really supporting educators,
That's right.
or all school faculty and staff to really understand that intersection between teaching, learning, and trauma. And I just co-authored a book with a dear friend and colleague of mine. Her name is Brooke Odrobanak. She's a brilliant instructional coach. And it's a real blending of the mental health side
Mm-hmm.
of life and what it's
Yeah.
like for students and teachers, along with really great instructional practical practices for teachers to like put straight into their classroom. It's geared towards adolescents. That's kind of that was the focus of my private practice as well.
That's
That's my
amazing. So,
specialty.
one of my questions to you is, how did you get into this? What was your inspiration to get into this field to provide this support to teachers and facilitators?
Well, I started after a couple different careers in education and was briefly a teacher. I don't want to insult teachers by saying that I was one because it was just for a couple of years. And then I got my master's in counseling. That was really like my calling. So I have worked in a school as a school-based psychotherapist for most of my career.
Mm.
And I had a private practice as well, but that was where I really worked to support not only students, but staff to start to better
Right.
understand how trauma shows up, how it's layered with adolescence, right? There's already enough going on under
Yeah.
there. And out of my work with Brooke of all of these years, we wrote this book. And last year I left the schools to pursue the facilitating and coaching piece. So I'm doing that in schools now and also working with businesses to start to understand a trauma-informed workplace.
That is something very important in especially in this day and age, right? And
Yeah.
the relevance of that is so important. So I'm really curious about the intersection of trauma
Mhm.
and what teachers and facilitators and educators need to know in this area. Can you talk more a little bit about that?
Yeah, I will say this is going to sound a little crazy, but one of the, I don't know that it's a gift, but certainly with this pandemic has impacted everybody so significantly
Hmm.
that adults and teachers and education um, who may not have experienced or really understood or have a felt sense of the impact of trauma are really feeling that now. And we're
Yeah.
starting to finally, the therapist community, to be able to support people, right? To have the language to normalize, to validate and affirm for people like what's happening for us as adults and how can we show up healthy, grounded,
Yeah.
kind of in our best adult self to then serve and understand the students that we work with and what they might be going through. So things have really shifted in the last 6 months for sure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
because now we not only know what the information about trauma, now we experience it from a personal and professional perspective, especially
Yes.
teachers nowadays who, trauma wasn't such a big, well, it wasn't a big thing for them, but the training, I believe, in the school system has been inept, right? It's been
Yeah.
below the surface, above the surface. Now what you're doing is you're going below the surface and helping these educators to understand what it looks like.
Yeah, it shows up in so many different ways in a classroom with the student, right? When you think about students that might be hyper aroused, those we might identify a little more easily. And then the students that are just shut down.
Yeah.
And it's so easy for an educator, for all of us, when we don't understand, to make up stories maybe about why a student is behaving a certain way, or we have some ideas about what that looks like without really understanding sort of the root of what might be happening for a student, and how can we as a school community create schools that have a goal of being regulated classrooms and safe places for students for their nervous systems to calm, right?
Yeah.
All those things that need to happen for that frontal lobe to engage in teaching and learning, which is the goal of the school.
Yeah. So a teacher is watching this, right? And one of the things I want to know, three things that they may gain from our conversation today. You know, you talked about the intersection of trauma. What are some of the things that you think would be valuable and relevant for them to understand in this day and age?
That is great. So the first thing is, I think, just to speak to teachers and starting with their own, especially now with everything they have going on, is to really start to understand how your nervous system is impacted by trauma. And we're all in this individual and collective trauma right now. So I think really naming that for people, helping them understand hyperarousal, hypoarousal, what the symptoms are, and start to identify their patterns and their responses to chronic stress and trauma, so that, number one, they're able to calm and self-regulate. That would be the first thing that I think is really important. Another thing that I think, especially as we're heading back to school, is the value and the fundamental need for connection. Right? That we're a human species, where I like to call this part, like, we're not snakes. I don't have 50 snake babies and I just don't care about them and they go off and live their lives, right? As humans, we're dependent on other people for our survival, and that never changes. That never changes. And so as they're thinking about re-entering school, how might they deeply connect, take the time to connect with students as everyone's sort of figuring out what these different re-entry starts and restarts look like. And the third thing I think would be less is more mentality. You know, teachers are wicked smart and they're high achievers and they want the best for their students. And they may be feeling like, last spring, I need to make up all that information that we missed. And how am I going to fit all this in? And of course, they're worrying about their own physical safety, their families, their children, like all of the things that are happening, being in the building, going back to virtual, all the stuff. And that right now, what you and I know in working with trauma is that less is more. That people, students and themselves can't,
that's right.
You know, it's little digestible bits because our minds are distracted and distressed. And when that happens, piling on a bunch of stuff, you can do it, but it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right. And so how might you simplify as you think about re-entering school? So I think those would be my three. Understanding my own response, connecting deeply with students and with my colleagues and friends, and less is more.
That is three powerful categories to really explore, and there's so much to unravel for that. You know, one of the things that sticks out to me is this idea of connection. You know, I more and more because I supervise pre-licensed clinicians, and they work with the adolescent and even young children. One of the themes that is going on right now is the trauma of the disconnection. Right? They want to be in school, but at the same time, there is that caveat, right? Where's the balance between safety and providing these information of connection, social connection in the school system that they provide, right? What do you say to that? That's horrible to even think about. Oh, they're going through their own trauma, but we also want to provide safety for them.
That's the rub, right? That's what everyone's trying to figure out, is how do you balance the psychological safety and needs and the physical safety and needs for not just the students, but for the adults. How do you balance those things in terms of, and it is, I don't envy people in those decision-making positions.
Yeah. And just providing that support and just that back and forth, because we're learning. We don't have an ABC 1, 2, 3 thing with this. We're just going with the flow, you know, unfortunately. Wow, your work is phenomenal here. Now, one of the things that is a topic nowadays is providing support to the teachers.
Yeah.
Right? What are some of the things from your perspective, and what you're hearing in the community is what they're crying out for and what they long for?
I think more than anything, what I'm hearing is that they're longing to have their voices heard. I think that I know that there's so much anxiety out there, and and they're wanting to be part of this decision-making process. And there's so many systems, in different structures at play, that's not always easy to do.
Yeah.
So I think there's a tremendous amount of fear, and that they're really needing some support, as I think to my clinician friends in ways that you might support teachers. And if there are teachers watching this, to encourage them to use your EAPs and use your health insurance and get some mental health support, because you are not responding to this wrong. I think we all want to find this right way. Like, you're looking like, what's wrong with me that I don't feel okay about going back to school, right? Or I do feel okay about going to school. Is there something I'm missing because other people don't, right? And just to kind of work out and have a place to process that we all respond differently, and there's no right or wrong way when we're responding to trauma.
Very, very good point.
Yeah.
You mentioned in the very beginning that you've got a book, and I think this is a powerful resource for many facilitators and teachers. Can you hold it up a little bit and explain a little bit more of that?
So the book is called Teaching, Learning, and Trauma, Responsive Practices for Holding Steady in Turbulent Times. It's published by Corwin. You can find it on their website. Again, it's for secondary educators, and my co-author and friend Brooke and I were really intentional around making this accessible for teachers.
Yeah.
So it's like professional learning on a page. It's very reflective. Our hope, we don't have all the answers, we don't solve all the problems, but to invite teachers to reflect on their own practices and start to have some of these hard conversations in their community feels really important.
Yeah. And the other thing that you're also providing is some sort of an online support, some sort of can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I just started this group. We had our first group last night. It was amazing. Right now it's a 3-week little mini course called Rock Solid Start. And I was thinking about, how can I support teachers in a way that's digestible? Everybody's heading back to school. Everything's, the anxiety is ramping up. And so the course is designed with 3 little mini lessons, which is a pre-recorded webinar, 30 minutes or less, and a little bit of homework, because of course educators are thoughtful people and love a little homework. And then we meet for a live session once a week. So it's not too time intensive or labor intensive. And I think the most powerful thing that came out of last night's session were when the teachers gave some feedback at our checkout of, I feel less alone.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's basically the bottom line, the foundation of these support online systems, right?
Yes.
And I'm glad, Beth, that you are absolutely stepping into that realm, because, these are the people that, you're right, we're not hearing much more. We're not hearing at all, actually. I mean, I live really close to a, a middle school, and my backyard I can actually hear the kids, and they're having, sessions outdoors, and I can see them.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it feels like for facilitators and educators in this day and age. Give us some insight as to that.
Well, I think they're rightfully so terrified. And I know that's a really big word, and I'm not an alarmist, but they're really scared, balancing their own physical well-being, their emotional well-being. And they, teaching is a vocation, teaching is a calling, and they want to be with their students.
Yeah.
They miss, it's like clinicians having to step out of the office has been really hard and do all the virtual telehealth stuff. And it's the same with teachers.
Yeah.
So I think there's this tremendous grief and loss that's happening, and really high anxiety when they're faced with these decisions around, of course, needing a job and wanting to connect and serve kids, and also wanting to feel safe, and just not all of the unknowns.
Yeah. And all too often they get shamed and judged for, if they want to stay home, they want to care for their safety, for them and their families. But at the same time, when they say out loud, I don't want to go back to classes right now because I don't feel safe, automatically some people would say, well, you don't care. You don't care about the, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where they get judged and shamed for caring about their own safety.
Yes. It's so complicated and layered, and many of them are parents of children of their own. So as all different school districts are coming with all different models, and it's like, I saw an article recently online that said you can pick your kid or your job. You can't have both. How do you balance these things? And again, when I even think about that, I can get spun up and overwhelmed and kind of go in the stratosphere pretty easily. And I have to just calm myself down. And that's why I designed this course too, is like, we can't control all of these things. And what do you know? Here's what I know about educators. They're brilliant. They're dedicated. They're highly skilled. They could teach on the moon. They could teach in a class. They could teach in a hut, and to just really remind them in this grounded way, what can I control and what can't I?
Yeah.
Right. And to empower them that they will make the best decisions moving forward if they're coming from that regulated place.
Right.
And not that reactive place. And that's kind of all. I don't mean to minimize, but what else can we ever do?
Absolutely. Especially nowadays, we're still, everyone in every profession, they're reevaluating what they thought they knew, what they've learned in the past. I'm sorry, but this virus just leveled all the field.
It has.
So, for those of you facilitators, teachers, educators out there, have some grace for yourself, because we are literally trying to figure things out at this point, and you do the best work.
Yeah. And this doesn't rest on the shoulders of the teachers to fix this system, nor the shoulders of the parents or the students or even the administrators. These are really complicated times, and people are concerned about the growing, in some ways it has leveled all of us, and in other ways there's a growing disparity around those who have and they have nots, and students that are at high risk and marginalized. And it's a lot to manage, but no single one of us is able to do it alone. And that's why this connection piece and the calming piece and kind of reconnecting to the purpose. Why am I an educator in the first place? Why did I spend all that time and money in education?
That's right.
What gets me out of bed, to still make those intentional choices while, like you say, we're figuring it out. Nobody has all the answers.
So for those of you who are listening and really at a point where you need the support, I highly recommend Beth. Her energy is amazing. She will support you. And please pick up her book. Can you hold that book up again?
Thanks, Ernesto.
I'm going to get my copy next week, hopefully.
Yep.
I'll do a book review on this. And I just love that you're supporting this population, especially in this day and age when that's what we're seeing on the news, the social media, how to support, and that balancing act, right?
Yeah. Our teachers are our first responders, in my opinion. I mean, they're on the front lines working with kids, trying to figure it out. They're not mental health trained professionals. This isn't new to COVID, right? Teachers have been in the trenches and doing the best they can to care and love and educate students. And, it's part of my life's work to support them in that. So I appreciate you taking the time to chat about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for all of you teachers out there, you are creating the foundation for the next generation. I mean, I always believe that the teachers are the ones that really help catapult the next generation, and the way educated society is a healthy society, and you teachers are really making those differences for us. I know how I was when I was a kid. I felt sorry for my teachers, but look at me.
Look at you now.
I am the product of you teachers.
That's right.
All those years when teachers are telling me, hey, you need to do this. We're going to support you, and communicating with my parents saying, he's not crazy. He's just, he's just at a developmental area.
He's got a lot of energy.
I'm telling you, I mean, the teachers were one of some of the biggest advocate for me.
Yes. We've all been influenced by teachers, some in really positive ways and some in not so positive ways, that have also spurred our learning and our growth, right? And I was meeting with this friend of mine the other day, and she was giving a talk to a group, and she was saying, people come up and they'll say, oh, well, being a neuroscientist is like the most important job, or a rocket scientist, or all the other jobs that are most important job. And she was like, no, being a teacher is the most important job because someone taught you how to read. And I was like, oh, burn, she has a point.
For real.
I mean, fundamentally, right? We have all learned through the dedicated work of educators.
Oh, heck yes. As you were talking, I can still picture the teachers that was so relevant through my growth. For a significant part of my life, I went to a Catholic school, and the nuns there were so caring. They were just really sit right here, take care of this, do this now. And as soon as I go into high school, I just remember, as you were talking, remember all those people that were just, you know, get your act straight. We got you covered. You can do this, learn this. I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
Those rocket scientists would not be rocket scientists without these people telling you the basics of what you need to do as far as learning.
Yes.
Wow, that's a really good
Yeah.
That's a really good perspective, huh?
And they need our support right now.
They do. They
Yeah.
do. Beth, I hope and wish that many people, teachers, sign up for your course, because this is so needed. Please, all of you teachers who are watching, even mental health professionals like me, pick up the book.
Yeah.
So, because at one point or another, we are calling teachers, especially for those of you who are play therapists, working with adolescents, working with children, you're going to do some caring with this population. So you might as well learn what goes on in the minds of teachers and how to support them through this time. Don't you
Yeah,
think,
when we
Beth?
just think of everyone knows a teacher, they love a teacher, they're married to a teacher, their kids are teachers, their parents were teachers. When you start to look around, educators are so pervasive in our society. It's such an incredible profession.
Yeah.
And I have also, just in such a great community of people, there have been people who have called and said, I want to sponsor a teacher to come to your mini course, which is awesome.
Yeah.
In case teachers have a financial hardship. So that's a possibility too.
I'm telling you now, I am going to endorse this. I'm going to do a book review. Thank you so much for what
thank you,
do.
Ernesto. That's awesome.
Beth, you are amazing. Thanks again for all you do for the community.
Thank you, Ernesto, for having me on. It's always awesome visiting with you. And I learned so much with you and from you. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Okay.